The invitation sat on my desk, cream-colored cardstock with gold embossing, the same stationery my father had used to write my disownment letter 15 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on me. Please join us for dinner at the Lockwood Estate at 8. Your presence is urgently requested. I turned the card over in my hands, my fingers tracing the elegant lettering. My assistant Daniel watched me carefully. Are you going to go? I leaned back in my chair, looking out at the San Francisco skyline from my corner office. What do you think, Daniel? After 15 years of silence, they suddenly want a family dinner? My name is Eleanor Lockwood, though I haven't used that last name since I was 23. Back then, I was just the defiant older daughter who dared to question my father's business decisions. Now, I'm Eleanor Reed, CEO of Novatech, one of the fastest-growing AI companies in the world. And as of this morning, I had just signed the papers to acquire Lockwood Industries, my family's once powerful but now failing empire. The merger documents are ready, Daniel said, placing a thick folder on my desk. Everything's set for next week's board meeting. I nodded but kept staring at the invitation. Have you seen the latest numbers from Lockwood Industries? Daniel swiped through his tablet. Stock is down 60% from last year. Your brother's latest product launch was a disaster. Rumors say they won't even make payroll next month. My younger brother, Julian. The perfect Lockwood heir. The golden child who had been handed the CEO title without lifting a finger. The same brother who had stood by, silent, when our father threw me out. I exhaled slowly. Book me a flight to Seattle. 15 years, and the Lockwood Estate still looked the same. The sprawling gardens, the towering stone mansion, the overwhelming weight of expectations. As my car pulled up the long driveway, I spotted familiar vehicles. Julian's Aston Martin, my father's Rolls-Royce. Daniel had insisted on having a driver wait outside. Just in case, he'd said. Smart man. A butler, not the one from my childhood, opened the door before I could knock. Miss Lockwood, he greeted formally. Miss Reed, I corrected him. His eyes widened slightly before he gave a curt nod. Of course. My apologies, Miss Reed. The family is waiting in the study. The study. Where every major Lockwood decision had been made. Where my father had once told me I was no longer welcome in his house or his company. As I walked down the long hallway, I noticed the framed family portraits. Julian's graduation, his wedding, his rise to CEO. My presence had been meticulously erased. The door was open. Inside, my father sat behind his massive mahogany desk, looking older but still commanding. Julian perched on the leather couch, his designer suit crisp, though his fingers twitched with nervous energy. And in the corner, my mother sat quietly, just as she had the day I left. Eleanor, my father said, standing, thank you for coming. I lingered in the doorway, arms crossed. Well, when the great Charles Lockwood requests your presence, how could I refuse? Julian flinched. My father's jaw tightened, but he pressed on. Please, sit. We have much to discuss. I chose an armchair near the door, keeping my distance. Silence stretched uncomfortably. Finally, my father spoke. We're aware of your success in recent years. I raised an eyebrow. My success? You mean building a billion-dollar company from nothing while you were busy grooming Julian to run Lockwood Industries into the ground? Eleanor, please, my mother whispered. I leaned forward, voice steady. No, you don't get to please me. Not after what you did. And so the reckoning began. Spoke for the first time. We're trying to have a civil conversation. Civil? I laughed. Like the civil way you all sat there while father threw me out? Or the civil way you've pretended I don't exist for 15 years? Julian stood up suddenly. We made mistakes, okay? Is that what you want to hear? We were wrong. I studied my brother, really looked at him for the first time. The perfectly styled dark hair, always cut to perfection, was now slightly disheveled. There were shadows under his eyes, tension in his shoulders. Running a failing company didn't look good on him. Why am I here? I asked, turning back to my father. He sighed heavily, looking every bit of his 65 years. Lockwood Industries is in trouble. We need your help. And there it was. Not an apology, not an acknowledgement of the pain they had caused, just another business transaction. My help? I kept my voice neutral. What kind of help? We've seen what you've done with Novatech, he said. The innovation, the growth. We need that kind of thinking at Lockwood Industries. I thought about the merger documents waiting in my briefcase, about the months of careful planning that had led to this moment. And what exactly are you offering? Julian jumped in. A partnership, co-CEO position, equal say in the company's direction. I almost laughed. They had no idea how close they were to having no say at all. Let me get this straight, I said, standing. For 15 years I was the family disappointment, the one who didn't understand business, the one who wasn't worthy of the Lockwood name. But now that you're failing, suddenly I'm good enough? That's not fair, Julian protested. Things are different now. Different? I turned to him. Different how? Because you failed at the job you were handed on a silver platter? Because you couldn't handle the responsibility you were so sure you deserved? Enough! My father's voice cracked like a whip. We're offering you a chance to come home, Eleanor, to be part of the family again. I reached for my briefcase, pulling out the merger documents. That's a generous offer, Dad, but I have a counter-proposal. I placed the papers on his desk, watching as he picked them up. His face went pale as he read. What is this? The future of Lockwood Industries, I said calmly. Novatech has been buying shares through various subsidiaries for months. As of next week's board meeting, we will own controlling interest in your company. Julian grabbed the papers from our father's hands, his eyes scanning frantically. This is impossible. You can't. Can't what? I asked. Can't outmaneuver the mighty Lockwoods? Can't build something bigger and better than you? Can't take everything you thought was yours? My father stood up, his face red with anger. You planned this, all of it. No, Dad, you planned this. The moment you decided Julian was more worthy of your trust, your love, your legacy, you set this in motion. I just learned from your example. We'll fight this, he threatened. We have lawyers. Yes, you do, I agreed. The same lawyers who helped me structure this deal. Turns out loyalty can be bought. Another lesson I learned from you. The silence in the study was deafening. My mother had gone completely still, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Julian looked like he might be sick, and my father, he just kept staring at the merger documents like they might somehow change if he glared at them long enough. The board meeting is next Tuesday, I said, standing up. I suggest you take the weekend to come to terms with this. Please, my mother finally spoke, her voice trembling. Eleanor, we're your family. I turned to her, feeling the old pain surface. Family? I asked. Where was my family when I needed them? This family? Where was this family when Dad threw me out? When Julian took everything that should have been shared between us? When I was struggling to build something of my own? You never needed our help, Julian said quietly. Look at what you've built. I laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. You think Novatech happened by magic? I worked 18-hour days for years. I lived in a tiny apartment, ate ramen noodles, and pitched to every investor who would listen. And you know what kept me going? Knowing that someday I'd be strong enough to make you all see what you threw away. My father finally found his voice. So this is revenge? No, Dad, this is business. Isn't that what you always taught us? Never let emotions cloud your judgment? I picked up my briefcase. Lockwood Industries is failing. Novatech can save it. The fact that I get to do it, what did you used to call it? A fortunate business opportunity? As I turned to leave, Julian caught my arm. Wait. What's gonna happen to us? To our jobs? I looked at my brother, really looked at him. The golden child who'd had everything handed to him, who'd never had to fight for anything in his life. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. That depends, I said. Are you willing to earn your position for once? Before anyone could respond, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. Daniel. Right on schedule. I have to take this, I said, stepping into the hallway. Daniel, how did the board calls go? Better than expected, he reported. Most of them are already on board with the merger. They've seen the numbers. They know Lockwood Industries can't survive without outside intervention. Good. And the press release? ready to go after Tuesday's meeting. The business papers are already speculating about a possible buyout. Your father's mismanagement and Julian's failed product launches have made it an easy sell. I ended the call and turned to find my mother standing in the doorway. You thought of everything, haven't you? She asked softly. I had to, I replied. You all taught me that nothing less than perfection was acceptable. She flinched. We were wrong, Eleanor. About so many things. Yes, you were. Is there any way to fix this? I studied her face. The same face that had watched silently as my father destroyed my life 15 years ago. Fix what, Mom? The company? The family? Some things can't be fixed, they can only be rebuilt. And rebuilding requires change. Back in the study, my father had moved to the window, staring out at the gardens where he'd once lectured Julian and me about the importance of the Lockwood legacy. What are your terms? He asked without turning around. For the company? They're in the merger documents. For the family? I paused. That's more complicated. Julian looked up from where he'd been reading the merger papers. You're not firing everyone, are you? Unlike you, I actually care about the employees, I said. Anyone who's qualified and willing to adapt will have a place in the new organization. But there will be changes. Big ones. And us? He asked quietly. That depends on you. Are you willing to start at the bottom, learn the business properly, prove you deserve your position? He nodded slowly. I think I need to. Good, because that's your only option if you want to stay with the company. My father turned from the window to look at me. And me? You'll be offered a position on the board, non-executive, no direct management role. Your years of experience could be valuable, but you won't be running things anymore. He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it again. For the first time in my life, I saw Charles Lockwood accept defeat. Board meeting is at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, I said, gathering my things. I suggest you all be prepared. As I reached the door, my mother called out, Will you stay for dinner? I turned back, really looking at them. My father, proud but defeated. Julian, scared but finally understanding. My mother, hopeful but uncertain. No, I said softly. Not tonight. We have too much history for casual family dinners, but maybe someday. The next few days passed in a blur of meetings and preparations. Daniel kept me updated on the board members' responses. Most were enthusiastically supporting the merger, seeing it as their best chance to salvage their investments. On Monday evening, as I sat in my hotel room reviewing the final presentations, my phone buzzed with a text from Julian. Can we meet? Just us? I considered ignoring it, but something made me respond. Lobby bar, 30 minutes. He was already there when I arrived, nursing what looked like a very expensive glass of whiskey. Thanks for coming, he said as I sat down. What do you want, Julian? He took a deep breath. I wanted to say, I'm sorry, not just for now, but for then, for not standing up for you when Dad threw you out, for taking everything without questioning it, for being exactly who they wanted me to be, instead of who I should have been. I signaled the bartender for a drink. And you're just realizing this now? No, he admitted. I've known for years that I was in over my head, that I wasn't cut out for this, but I was too proud, too scared to admit it. So what changed? You did, he said, seeing what you've built, how strong you've become. It made me realize what real leadership looks like. I studied my brother, searching for any sign of manipulation, but all I saw was exhaustion and genuine regret. You know things can't go back to how they were, I said finally. I know. I don't want them to. I want to learn, really learn, from the ground up. Will you teach me? The next morning, I stood before the Lockwood Industries Board of Directors, my father and brother seated among them, as I presented Novatech's vision for the merged companies. I couldn't help but appreciate the symmetry of the moment. 15 years ago, in this very room, my father had told me I wasn't worthy of the family business. Now, I was showing him exactly what he had thrown away. The vote was unanimous. By noon, Lockwood Industries was officially part of Novatech. As the board members filed out, my father approached me. You've won, he said simply. This isn't about winning, Dad, I replied. It's about fixing what's broken, in the company, and maybe, eventually, in the family. He nodded slowly. I underestimated you. I was wrong. Yes, you were. The question is, what are you going to do about it now? He straightened his shoulders, and for a moment I saw the man who had once taught me about business, before Pride and Prejudice had poisoned everything. I'm gonna watch my daughter run the company I should have trusted her with 15 years ago, he said, if she'll let me. It wasn't an apology, not really, but it was a start. 6 months later, I sat in what had once been my father's office, now my secondary workspace, when I was in Seattle. Julian was presenting his analysis of a potential new product line, work he had done from the ground up, starting as a junior analyst. The market research suggests a strong demand, he concluded, but we need to address these production challenges. I watched my brother confidently handle questions from the team, showing a grasp of details he had never bothered with before. He was learning, growing, becoming the businessman he could have been years ago if he hadn't been handed everything too easily. After the meeting, as we walked toward the elevators, he hesitated. Hey, he said, I know it's a long way off, but maybe next time you're in town we could, I don't know, grab dinner? I considered it for a moment. Maybe, I said, stepping into the elevator. As the doors closed, I realized something. For the first time in 15 years, maybe didn't feel like a no. Meeting over, Julian lingered behind. That went well, right? It did, I agreed. You've come a long way in 6 months. Thanks to you, he said quietly, for giving me a chance I probably didn't deserve. Everyone deserves a chance to prove themselves, Julian, even spoiled little brothers who take 15 years to grow up. He laughed, a real laugh, not the forced one he used to perfect for boardrooms and press interviews. Mom asked me to remind you about Sunday dinner. I had been to exactly 2 family dinners in the past 6 months. They were still awkward, still heavy with unspoken words and lingering hurt, but they were also something else. A beginning. Maybe, I said, I have a lot of work to do. You always have a lot of work to do, Julian pointed out, but maybe that's not all there is to life. Maybe sometimes family dinner is just family dinner. I looked at him, really looked at him. The entitled air was gone, replaced by someone more real, more substantial. Maybe, I agreed, we'll see. Later that evening, as I worked late in my office, I found myself looking at an old photo I kept in my desk. Me and Julian as children, before expectations and favoritism had torn us apart. We were smiling, arms around each other, unaware of the years of pain and separation ahead. My phone buzzed, a text from Daniel. Board reports show Q3 profits up 40% since the merger, Lockwood Tech Division exceeding all projections. I smiled, thinking about how far we had all come. My father was learning to be a board member instead of a dictator. Julian was earning his place instead of expecting it. Even my mother was finding her voice, slowly but surely. And me? I was learning that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's showing people exactly what they missed out on, and then maybe giving them a chance to make it right. I picked up my phone and texted Julian. Tell Mom I'll be there Sunday, but I'm not staying long. His reply came quickly. Long enough for dessert? She's making your favorite, chocolate cake. I thought about our mother, trying so hard to rebuild bridges with chocolate cake and Sunday dinners. About my father, swallowing his pride to learn from the daughter he once dismissed. About Julian, working his way up from the bottom with no complaints. Fine, I texted back, but only because of the cake. Some might say I had won. I had the company, the success, the vindication. But sitting there, looking at that old photo and thinking about Sunday dinner, I realized something important. Sometimes, the greatest victory isn't in defeating your enemies. It's in giving them the chance to become something better. Even if it takes 15 years and a corporate takeover to get there. I've spent 15 years proving my worth, not just to my family but to myself. I built something from nothing, faced rejection after rejection, and turned every loss into fuel to succeed. And now, standing here, I realize that success isn't just about winning. It's about choices. Do you hold on to anger, or do you let people grow? Do you close the door forever, or do you give them a chance to change? I used to think the greatest victory was proving everyone wrong. Now I wonder if it's allowing them the space to make things right. But what do you think? Would you have given them a second chance? Do people deserve the opportunity to earn back trust after years of silence and betrayal? I want to hear from you. If you were in my shoes, would you have walked away forever, or would you have sat down at that Sunday dinner table? Tell me in the comments, what would you have done? And more importantly, have you ever had to make a similar choice? Let's talk about it. And if there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that we don't always get to choose the families we're born into, but we do get to decide how we let them shape us. If you're holding on to anger, ask yourself, does it make you stronger, or is it keeping you from something greater? If there's someone in your life who has hurt you, do they deserve another chance? Only you can answer that, but whatever you decide, make sure it's your choice, not theirs. Because at the end of the day, the real power isn't in proving others wrong. It's in knowing who you are, regardless of who they think you should be.